This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 6 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/Hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code Hugh at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace. This was taken with Leica's brand new 60 megapixel $9,000 M11. And their also, as it happens, $9,000 APS-C M 50mm f2 aspherical lens. But this was taken with Fujifilm's 2-year-old 26.2 megapixel $1,700 Fujifilm X-T4 and their $800 XF 33mm f1.4 introduced just 6 months ago. Questions? Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for 3 Blind Men and an Elephant, and today I want to talk about Fujifilm's XF 33mm f1.4, the third of their 4 next-generation primes I've been able to get my hands on. Now, what I'm not going to do is cover ground that has already been well-trodden by other YouTubers when it was introduced last year. I think our friends Chris Nichols and Jordan Drake over at DP Review TV, for example, did a great job going through the details of everything from sunstars to bokeh balls. Great. Autofocus performance, much better than its predecessor, the 35 1.4. Center sharpness, excellent. Corner sharpness, not as much. And more, like flare and ghosting, could be better. The thing of it is, the only way to know a lens, really know a lens, and to know whether or not it's right for you, is to shoot your kind of shot with it. Thus, all it took was that one photograph of Lower Manhattan taken from a Brooklyn pier on a miserably cold and blustery afternoon, and then comparing it to shots of the same subject matter at the same time with that Leica and with our Sony A7 IV to convince me of 2 things. First, the XF 33 1.4 is a lovely street photography and general-purpose lens for any XF mount Fujifilm camera. It is a next-generation optic offering a solid blend of build quality, image quality, maximum aperture, autofocus performance, and features like weather sealing and a dedicated aperture ring at a relatively accessible price point. Though I will add that what was especially notable in my tests is how well it is corrected for chromatic aberration. I will also tell you that at this moment in time, what I'm looking for in new lens designs and performance is what some people might criticize as a too clinical look. I am not interested in lens character for bread and butter lenses like standard primes or daily driver zooms. I can get that from older lenses, or actually some of the newest ones like TT Artisan's very interesting 90mm f1.25 manual focus lens. Instead, I'm looking for an utter absence of anything that gets between what I see and what I capture. I can always add character in post if that's what I really want, but in fact, to the extent that my images do have character, or however one defines it, I try. I think it comes from my head, my heart, and my eye, my values. With all of this said, for 99% of us, 99% of the time, that is all of us, save for those who print very large, view those prints at much closer than normal viewing distances, or who crop the crap out of images. The 33 1.4 can, under the right circumstances, give a full-frame setup costing, 7 times as much? A run for its money. But second, it is even more clear to me now that Fujifilm has reached an inflection point, a moment right here, right now in 2022, where it desperately needs a body with sensor resolution high enough to coax everything out of that lens of which it is capable, and offer autofocus performance, IBIS performance, freedom from recording limits, and the right ports, just like the best full-frame cameras, stat. But before we get into it, Claudia and I want to invite you to join us at one of our Streets of New York photography workshops coming up this May 15th through 18th, or June 5th through 8th, live and in person in, you guessed it, New York City. making it even more special this year with thanks to our friends at the Citizen M Bowery, where we'll be staying. It's one of our favorite hotels in the city, comfortable, clean, quiet, with a wonderful design sensibility and super friendly staff. I'm delighted to share with you, we've been able to arrange for our classroom sessions to be held exclusively in their Cloud M rooftop lounge. Just us, no one else, with absolutely astounding views of Manhattan. Space is limited and getting scarce. Our October session is already sold out. We have a waiting list for it, and we only have a few seats left in May, a few more in June. So if you're interested, please hop over to www.3bmep.com/streets22 to learn more. We hope to see you there. Okay, back to the XF33 1.4, the full-frame equivalent of a 50mm f2. Now, I was about to tell you to hold that thought, but let's talk about it straight away, because the fact of the matter is that the full-frame segment is where the money and the momentum have been for the last half-decade, and none of the big boys has stood still. Neither have independent lens manufacturers like Sigma and Tamron. On the other hand, it has been 2 years since the X-T4 came out, and more than a decade, September 21st, 2011 to be precise, since the XF35 1.4 was announced with the X Pro 1. In other words, the competitive space has changed dramatically. We have full-frame cameras as small as Fujifilm's X-T4, like Sony's A7 series, Nikon's Z series, or Panasonic's S5. Full-frame cameras as inexpensive as the X-T4, like that $1,700 LUMIX S5 or Nikon's $1,300 Z5. Full-frame cameras with better autofocus than the X-T4, think Sony, Canon, and now, I think it's fair to say, Nikon with their Series 2Zs. Full-frame cameras with better IBIS than the X-T4, think Canon and Panasonic. Full-frame bodies with more than twice the megapixel count of the X-T4. And full-frame camera lens lines, primes in particular, across a wide range of focal lengths, better than Fujifilm's XF offerings, especially when it comes to edge-to-edge sharpness, autofocus performance, micro contrast, and flare and ghosting. Think Sony's latest 1.4 and 1.2 primes, Nikon's 1.8 Z primes, Sigma's I series, and especially their DGDN Art series, or Tamron's latest inexpensive 2.8 primes. Then again, capability in and of itself is not a reason to buy a particular piece of kit. You may not need more than what you've already got. You guys know this. Which is why I said just a moment ago that the only way to truly know a lens, and in turn know if it is right for you, is to shoot it for your use cases. It does help to remember that the performance of a lens, taken on its own, changes as a function of aperture and focusing distance in particular, but also as a function of subject matter, image size and viewing distance, gated by the body to which the lens is attached, and, oh yeah, how good we are as photographers and to what extent we have mastered our gear. All it takes is using the wrong autofocus mode, for example, or maybe even using the right focus mode, like, say, pinpoint, but forgetting that you'd left it in some odd corner of the frame on the last shot, and now, in the heat of the moment, the camera is focusing on precisely the wrong part of this frame, the really important one, which turns your otherwise sharp lens into mush. Using the wrong aperture can do exactly the same thing. Not stopping down enough can lead to depth of field too shallow or edges too soft to achieve critical sharpness. But stopping down too much, say f16 or more, can cause image degradation from, you know it, diffraction. Which is why, while I much prefer and derive most of my conclusions from shooting out in the real world, my kind of shots, I also go into the BAT studio downstairs to explore close focusing performance and lens characteristics under very controlled settings. Although, if, as I do every now and again, one does not keep the sensor plane absolutely parallel to the test scene, the results can become muddled too. Which is just another way of saying we are usually far more important than the lens itself or the sensor in determining image quality. The dirty little secret of just about all lens reviewers is that none of us has the time, inclination, or incentive to fully ring out a lens under most scenarios even, and most manufacturers' MTF charts show only one focusing distance, which they usually don't specify. But beyond what I learned and have already shared with you in the real world, let's move on to what I can tell you based upon testing in the BAT studio, because it's pretty darn interesting, at least in my book. 1. At 24 megapixels and a distance of about 4 feet, the 33 1.4 on an X-T4 performs in the same ballpark for sharpness and pop when pixel peeping up to 500% in Lightroom Classic as one of our favorite APS-C lenses of all time, Leica's Summilux TL 35 1.4, which we acquired in 2019. Sometimes the 33 1.4 was better in one part of the frame, sometimes worse, but it offered better chromatic aberration correction than the Summilux wide open through f4, maybe f5.6, although beyond f5.6 the difference evaporated, and this is an impressive result for the XF33 1.4 as the Summilux TL is priced at $2,900, just over 4 times the price. 2. Up to that same high magnification, the 33 1.4 was sometimes sharper, sometimes not, but consistently better corrected than one of our favorite full-frame lenses, Sigma's 35 f2 I series, wide open to somewhere again between f4 and 5.6 when mounted on our Leica SL2 in APS-C mode. Now, the Sigma 35 II, while very, very good, is not the sharpest or best corrected of the I series lenses. Hold that thought for a moment, but this was a surprising result. Then again, maybe not really. The 35 II performed better in the real world than it did in the BAT studio, but in the real world I was shooting a different kind of scene at a greater distance with a full 47 megapixels on a Panasonic LUMIX S1R rather than from 4 feet in crop mode. 3. Same magnification levels, the 33 1.4, again at 24 megapixels on the X-T4, was in the same ballpark across the board optically as Tamron's excellent 28-75 2.8G2 zoom at the higher 33 megapixel count of our Sony A7 IV, a little bit better here, a little bit worse there. Another strong showing, especially given that the X-T4 offers about 20% fewer pixels than the Sony, and Tamron has reset our expectation for how good a zoom can be at the price. 4. The XF33 1.4 was ever so slightly sharper in the center at 1.4 than my full-frame Leica Summicron M50 mounted on that 24 megapixel full-frame LUMIX S5 at f2, but the Summicron was ever so slightly sharper and better corrected off-center on either side from wide open. By f8, the Summicron was ever so slightly sharper across the board, equally well corrected, although the XF33 had a bit more punch. A testament, really, to the Summicron and the XF. To the Summicron for doing so well with a design dating back to the 70s, the XF for doing almost as well for a lens that costs less than half what I paid for my used 1997 Summicron just a couple of years ago. But you know what? If memory serves, I think Fujifilm's 18 1.4 is even better than the 33, and the performance of Nikon's $600 Nikkor Z 51.8 is on a higher astral plane altogether. Call it the difference between solid and breathtaking. All of which brings us back to the second point I made at the outset, stated differently. I really do hope the rumors of a 40 to 43 megapixel XH2 coming this year are true. The sooner the better. If they are true, it's going to be a really exciting time for Fujinistas, especially if they successfully hone the autofocus and IBIS and take care of the other stuff as well as I mentioned earlier. If not, I think the momentum and money pouring into the full-frame space will become, if not already the case for many of us, insurmountable barriers to other formats, smaller and bigger. Because here's what I learned from 2 other tests I did in the BAT studio. First, I chose a significantly higher optical performance Sigma I series lens than the 35 f2, their $700 65 f2, which I also own, a very nice pairing, by the way, with my Apo Summicron SL35, attached it to my SL2 in full frame all 47.5 megapixels mode, and moved the camera back to equalize for field of view. Then, second, set Claudia's Nikkor Z 24-72.8 to 50 millimeters on her Z7 II, and moved it back to where the tripod had been to equalize for field of view once again. Also set to full frame and maxed out at the Z7 II's 45 megapixels. Not that this came as any surprise, but these two combos smoked them all, every which way. Let's wrap it up this way. As good as these new 1.4s are, as solid as the 33 1.4 is, it's no longer just about the lenses, although, frankly, every new APS-C lens Fujifilm introduces from here on out has to be spectacular and keenly priced because this is the new benchmark. Fujifilm's APS-C sensor resolution now has to match, I think, what its best APS-C lenses can deliver, and that in turn had better match what the best full-frame lenses can do on 40-plus megapixel full-frame cameras, which in turn means their next-generation APS-C camera bodies must do as well as full-frame from top to bottom, as I just said, autofocus, IBIS, ports, recording time, and while we're at it, dynamic range and high ISO noise performance too, these last two equalized, of course, for depth of field. This is now Fujifilm's biggest challenge, leveling up their entire APS-C system, at least for those of us who print big. I'm talking 60 inches on the long side, and then look at those prints inside normal viewing distances, or simply use high resolution and very high performance lenses to give us the maneuvering room to crop the crap out of an image. Like Claudia and I do, but hey, that's just us. Your mileage may vary, and as always, that's fine. I'd love to get your take in the comments section below. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 6 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/Hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code Hugh at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace. If you like what you've seen here today, please give a thumbs up, subscribe, join the conversation below because this is an incredible audience. If you'd like a copy of our Streets of New York, the book, head over to www.3bmep.com/books. If you'd like to schedule a one-on-one video session with me for a portfolio review, explore or hone your artistic voice, select gear, and more, sign up at www.3bmep.com/booking. Finally, consider supporting our work by using our no-cost-to-you affiliate links down below, picking up some official Three Blind Men and an Elephant swag at 3bmep.threadless.com, sending coffee money via PayPal, or best of all, join us as a patron over at Patreon. However you choose to support us, as always, we thank you for it.